Welcome to the Biz Easy Podcast, where small business is simplified for greater results. Brought to you by Resources and Development. Go to www.resources-development.com for help in taking your business to the next level. And now, help me welcome the host of the Biz Easy Podcast, Steve McCrillis.
Welcome to the Biz Easy Podcast, coming to you live from the joint offices of yours truly here in Middle Tennessee, and our resident guru of coaching, our lead business coach, Skip Williams, coming to you live from high atop the mountains in Bryan Head, Utah, our world headquarters. We fashion ourselves to be your resource to help take your business to the next level. My name is Steve, your host, and as we all learn to stay better focused on the things that make you great. Well, today's episode is going to be a bit of a change up from the normal. If you've listened to the last 26 episodes, 25, 26?
26. This is 27, Steve.
Episodes, yeah. We would like to cover, discuss, and add input from about three different topics today. And those three topics are: one, a review of last season's podcast, the good and the bad input from listeners. Number two, what to look for in season 2 of Biz Easy. And we're opening the lines up, we're opening the internet up for
email box
with your input of what you would like to see or not. And finally, client, customer, and fellow business owners' feedback of what they'd like to see, what they'd like to contribute. And I think you're going to be excited about some of the guests that we're going to have on.
Excellent. Before you get started, Steve, I want to say happy anniversary. This is one full year we've been putting out a podcast every other week. So congratulations and happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Now, do we know the exact date? I think that would be important, not to anyone else but me.
I'll find it for you. Take me a moment.
We won't take up our valuable listeners' time, but that would be something that would be important to me because I'm anal retentive that way. We are, however, going to pass on the dad joke of the day. Heavy sigh.
Oh.
Skip, tell us, what are you hoping to pass on to our listeners today?
Well, I know that we tried to take complex topics and break them down into easy to understand concepts. I'd like to know whether we were successful or not. What are your thoughts?
Well, the feedback that I've gotten from some of the groups and seminars that I've spoken to people, they enjoyed it. They enjoyed the banter. They thought sometimes the topics got a little bit into the weeds and they wanted a little more clarification, which I respect and I appreciate. But for the most part, yeah, the topics are contemporary. Now, the thing about it is we try to select from a host of topics that you and I have encountered with actual clients, things that they list as their top challenges. And as I mentioned in our last podcast, one of the most common challenges that small business owners face, or at least that they will admit to, is they have cash flow issues. Well, we try to make things biz easy, as the title would indicate, but there are some topics that do require some hand-holding, if you will, and some extra tutoring that we don't want to get too deep into the weeds when we've got a 20-minute podcast. But again, we've had some that have reached out and said, what do you mean by this? Or what do you mean by that? Many times we've invited our listeners to go to our website, read the blog, and if still there isn't clarification to your satisfaction, well, reach out. I don't think that we have missed a call. I don't think that we have always managed to return calls within 24 hours. Would you agree to that, Skip?
Yeah, or emails, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, it is our interest. In fact, a quick review. Skip and I have been in the consulting space now for collectively 50 years, and we have collectively met with over 5,000 business owners. And in each case, while we do our discovery, what we find out is that these are real people without Harvard educations, without Rhodes Scholars education, and they're managing to run a business, and in most cases, quite successfully. But those who have difficulty, those who are struggling with simple concepts and have been doing it a certain way, maybe they have a bookkeeper that's not quite up to speed, they're not giving the information, or maybe they have a sales and marketing that they're not sure what they should do with it. How can I improve that? But the key to it is, as a business owner, as another one of our podcasts talked about, you have to work on the business. You have to be the captain of the ship. You can't be the guy that's out there running the lathe or out there, mowing the lawns. You got to be a guy that is interested in taking control of the business and working on the business. And we can't say that enough. Many of the topics that we discuss, and I'm not going to review all 26 for you, but things that, what can you tell me about my business that I don't already know? This came from a guy who was running his business for 20 years. He said, what can you possibly tell me about the construction field? Well, the reality of it is the on versus in. I'm not going to tell you how you be a better contractor, but I can tell you how you can run your business more effectively and obviously with more profit, increasing sales. Those are the things that we focus on. Other things like going from manager to a leader, pricing goods and services, finding the right person to do the right job, the physics of business, how much profit should I be making, which is a real common question. In fact, in the top 3 challenges that I recognize that small business owners tell me, one of them is, I don't think I'm making enough money. And what concerns me is they're not sure how much they should be making. Should I be satisfied with this? And I'm not trying to suggest that anybody should gouge somebody, but you should be making enough to satisfy your corporate financial needs and your personal needs. Because if it wasn't for your business, you'd have a job. Let's be honest. Other things, recession-proofing your business. Ideas are easy. Implementation is hard. A great podcast that Skip had written a blog about. How to write a business plan. How to understand business valuation, what the purpose of. Modes of persuasion. We've had a couple of guests that talked about HR, the legalities of HR. We had someone talk about
websites. Yeah. Website building.
You're preparing marketing tools, and don't buy the cheapest. You need money for your business. And finally, our most recent one is Skip's writings on bootstrapping, which we just recently talked about. So those are some of the topics that we covered. I didn't go through the entire list, but we're always open, and the list of future topics is very extensive. But the feedback that we get is so critically important to us because we want to find out what people really want to know. Some of these things you may tune in and go, I know everything there is to know about that. Okay. Well, if nothing else, you listen to the witty banter. And that's my invitation.
Well, so, I just wanted to get in on the were we successful part here. And I think that in some cases, we did take some very complex topics and broke them down fairly simply and succinctly. But I think there were other cases where the deeper we got into it, the more we realized that its complexity maybe became overwhelming. And I don't know where to take those except to either take another stab at it or just work with people on a one-to-one basis when they need to really get into those weeds, as you put it. But yeah, we've covered a lot of topics, and I think if I had one big wish, and that would be that we were getting more feedback than we're getting, because even with 50 years of experience here, and we know what business owners experience in the trenches, we can't be predicting everything, and we'd really like to hear from you and what you'd like to hear on future podcasts.
I guess I open up to invite people to ask the expert. And a part of our website, resources-development.com, there's a space where you ask the expert, but you have to give a name and you have to give an email address. I know personally that I'm not a fan of giving my email address because I don't want a whole bunch of stuff. Sometimes I'm fine, sometimes I'm not. But don't be afraid of that because, truth be known, if you don't like anything we say, you don't like the way we handle this thing, you can unsubscribe in 2 seconds. We made it very easy to unsubscribe if you so choose. But if you have a question, maybe you want to be anonymous, but you still want to ask the question, put your email in there, put a fictitious name in there. And we're not collecting email addresses to send you out newsletters and send you out updates. We don't spend a great deal of time in doing that kind of marketing. So I'm going to encourage you to do that because you're not going to get spammed to death. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'm not saying we'll never use it. We may send you some tips and hints and suggestions, business tips, that sort of thing. Once again, like you said, you can unsubscribe to it pretty easily. And and that's as far as the email list goes. We don't use it for other things. We don't sell it to anybody. So yeah, and you can call me up and scream at me if I spam you.
There you go. I mean, we publish our phone numbers direct right on the website. Calls, we will certainly return your call. Have I covered topic one, review of last season, effectively enough?
Well, the one topic that I think might deserve some discussion and probably some feedback is we've kind of tried to make it a roughly about 20-minute format, and I wonder if that's good or bad. I'm thinking, from the bad is we could get a lot deeper into topics if we went 45 minutes or so, but I think the 20 on the good side, I think the 20-minute format is a nice drive time. So I'm wondering if listeners would be upset with us if, at least on exceptional cases, like if we're doing an interview with somebody or talking to business owners or whatever, that they would mind if we went 45 instead of 20 or something like that.
Yeah. Everything that we did, the research that we've done with our focus groups in advance, the 25 minutes at the tops is really optimal, because then you're not going to get too deep in the weeds. The only ones that I've recognized that have longer podcasts are comedians. And we're not that. In case you've listened to any other ones, we're not comedians. So.
Just funny looking, like I say.
That's right. But looks aren't everything. So as we go into topic two, which is what to look for in season 2 of Biz Easy, well, there's a couple of things that we have put together. We kind of knocked heads on what we should do to improve, what we can add, and I will tell you this. For season 2, we are in the process of compiling a publication with all of season 1's podcast. The title of which is still up for grabs. We're coming up with something clever, but nevertheless, that book will be available. And to our avid listeners, we'll make that available to them free. So it gives you a review of those in case you don't want to get on the internet or you want to read it on a train, whatever the case. But we'll have that available. Also, we've increased the amount of swag. A quick shout out to one of our clients who is just a lovely human being who provides us. Obviously, we pay for these things, but provides us with these kinds of things, and we're to make that available too. To hand out friends. It's great Christmas gifts.
Well, go ahead and say her name. Stitches by Cindy.
Stitches by Cindy.
She makes great. She makes great stuff.
Yeah. So
there we go.
Introducing all of that stuff as well.
That's cool.
That we've gotten on future topics. One of the questions that somebody asks is, what are the top 5, top 10, top 3 reasons that small businesses fail? We're going to go into those topics in some detail and why they are the top reasons that business fail. Many of the other podcasts that we've talked about, that we've discussed, identify why they could be the top, but I think it would be very telling.
Dave, I'd like to do some interviews of some business owners and have them come on and learn how they overcame some of the struggles that they've had in building their business. So I would encourage anybody that has a business that would like a little bit of exposure to reach out to us and volunteer to be a guinea pig, if you will, or our science experiment here as to kind of what the struggles were that you went through when you started your business and how did you overcome them. So reach out to us on that one. I think that would be really fun.
Well, they're exciting stories, quite frankly. And I think most business owners, when they discuss the issues that they had, the challenges that they had, and how they overcame them, it's a proud moment, because it may be simple. And I talk about one of the first businesses I had. I mean, it failed miserably because I didn't focus on 2 very important things. One, the market area, and 2, the current social situation of where I was opening a business. Mm-hmm. That's a story for another day. But nevertheless, overcoming those things and realizing, I just saw an interview with Michael Jordan. He talks about, I've lost 9,000 times, or I've missed 9,000 shots. And he goes through this whole list of things. And each one of those things led to his success. So I think it's a great story.
Absolutely. On a related thing is, if we could, I'd also ask any subject matter experts that want to reach out to business owners and talk about whatever that business topic is to reach out to us as well. I think the couple that we've had were compelling, and I think there's probably a lot more interesting people out there we could talk to.
In conjunction with that, we're offering sponsorships for a podcast wherein you would get the advertising for it, linked on our website, linked on your website if so necessary. And it'd be a great joint venture, I think, also to get more exposure, expand your market reach, if you will. So,
okay, I had this idea too about what about listeners that have businesses. If they send us like a free T-shirt or some type of swag with a short paragraph about what they do, we could wear it or show it on an episode and give a shout out to them and read their message as to what it is they do.
So those that are you're talking about those that may be camera shy and don't really want to appear on the podcast, but they do want to be represented. I'm okay with that. I know such a business owner that says I'm not going to be on full view to anybody.
Well, no, the reason I really put this out there is I need more T-shirts.
Okay. Well, I think the reason that this guy didn't want to be on video or in pictures because he's in witness protection, but that's a topic for another day.
What are the topics we got coming up this season?
Coming up, and one of them I already kind of introduced is that's the top reasons that small businesses fail. I do have the top reasons. It was issued by Forbes magazine some time ago. I make sure that it's contemporary and it's up to date, but we're debating, do we introduce all 10 and then break them into 10 different segments and talk about each one? Or I don't know. We're still mulling that over. Adding new revenue streams to your business is a real popular one too. How can I expand my business? One of our clients had done just that very thing. Took other products that complement her existing products, and she took off and ran with it, increased her revenue quite considerably. What are you thinking? Additional topics.
Well, first off, on business failures, I think you want to make it as few episodes as possible because I hate talking about failure. I'd much rather talk about success, but absolutely. That's my 2 cents. I think the couple of episodes we've done on employee issues, communications, and HR issues, that sort of thing. I think those are topics, especially in our changing cultures. Right, we've got different generations working together, and they all have different goals in life. So I think maybe talking about that. A couple of listeners have asked if we'd ever consider doing some free coaching. And
free coaching is something that we are going to offer to those who do put in some suggestions, and it's kind of a taste of what possibilities. Every business owner, one of the common questions I asked in discovery was this: who do you commiserate with when you have an issue, or if you have a topic, or if you have a challenge, and you just want to spitball with somebody? Because sometimes, and I know we're this way, we have something that comes up, we're not quite sure how to handle it. But when we start passing that back and forth, sharing ideas, you can come up with a collective answer a little bit more effectively. How many times do you wake up in the middle of the night with the most brilliant idea, something that could revolutionize your business, revolutionize what it is you're doing? And then you're thinking, I can't go back to sleep. This is great. And you begin to mull it over. It sounds great. And the next morning, you get with your partner or key employee or whatever, and now you start expounding upon this great idea you had. And as you're talking, he's looking at you like, what now?
Huh?
So it's funny when you begin to bounce it off somebody. When it sounded so brilliant in your head, it may sound different when you actually tell somebody. So we offer that opportunity as well. We don't pass judgment because we've seen every possible faux pas in business that I think that it is possible, but hey, everybody does that. I mean, you gotta fail many times in order to succeed. That's kind of our opinion.
I think I mentioned in a previous episode something along the lines of just because that idea, when you actually say it out loud, doesn't sound as brilliant as it did when you were dreaming it, doesn't mean that there's not at least a seed of an idea there. How can we take this harebrained idea and turn it into a business model that's repeatable and sellable? So that that is certainly part of free coaching. But honestly, I think Steve is an amazing analyst. He can do some things with some spreadsheets and numbers to kind of tell you where you are, and give you some ideas of where to go in the future. And I usually do a follow up with those clients to kind of get down into the weeds a little bit and pick those one or two cherries that we think could give them the most bang for their buck, and spend a little bit of time talking through having a video conference on something like that. So anyway, I am not opposed to that, Steve. You willing to do a few assessments, and if I follow it up with some coaching?
Absolutely. In fact, we've had many who have at least wanted to have a think tank. Can I just get together and kind of shoot some ideas off you? We're not afraid to tell you that, consider this possibility instead, or consider this in addition to that. Again, I go back to my days out on the road. Whenever I would listen to a business owner, I'm sitting there talking to him, and all of a sudden a key employee knocks on the door, comes in. Can I ask you a quick question? And the business owner says, 1 second. And he looks at him and says, what's that? And he presents him with a problem. And immediately the business owner answers the question and he gives him the solution. And the guy walks away. And I said, let's talk about that for a minute. I said, you gave him in about 30 words the solution to the problem. And basically you owned the problem then. Not that that's a bad thing. But what would have happened if you said, let me ask you a question. You've been out in the field for me 10 years. You've run across just about everything there is. What do you think? What solution would you come up with? Give him the opportunity to come up with a solution. And while he's coming up with that solution, because now he's got to think rather than just dump the problem on you. And he comes up with the solutions, then you guide him to that. Say, I like what you got to say, but what do you think about adding this to that, or maybe this or this? And now you two are really coming to a connection as to what you can do to solve the problem. That's what think tanking is, and that's what spitballing is. And it's a benefit to the business owner because it shows your confidence in his decision making. It also is a benefit to the employee because they get the empowerment to be able to make decisions in your absence, because you want a little bit more autonomy. You want your people to be able to take control of this, unless you're some sort of a control freak and you got to be involved in every little thing in the company, which we don't advocate. But it helps the organization overall. I just made a very long answer to a very simple topic. But
yeah, we do that sometimes, don't we?
Yeah. That's what spitballing is. It's taking a 30-second concept and making it a 20-minute podcast. No, I didn't.
All right. Well, kind of the blue sky of the future in my mind is there's a few things we need from our listeners in particular, so that we can take this podcast to the next level, just like you want to take your business to the next level. And of course, in the media world, it's always eyeballs of business owners like you, and to like and subscribe and pass it on and help other business owners like and subscribe and get the benefit from it as well. So I would really ask for your loyalty if you've enjoyed the podcast. From all the likes that I see on the platforms and so forth, it seems that you do. So please just turn some other people onto it, get this viewership up, and then there's some additional things we can do, right, Steve?
Well, it's interesting because we have reviewed all of our viewers, and not one person has said don't like yet.
Exactly.
I'm hoping I'm not inviting somebody to challenge that, but nevertheless.
And that may just be because they don't like it. They don't like the thumbs downs on Yelps and Yahoo reviews and things like that. And so I thank you for that. But if you do find it of value, right?
Yeah.
Please support us with not with your cash, but with your eyeballs.
Yeah. More feedback, more suggestions. Again, and I made reference to this before. Ask the expert, just write in a comment. We'll respond to you. If you want an open phone call, or if you don't want to be called, it's really up to you, because a lot of people do want to maintain some anonymity because they don't want to be the one identifying an issue that they have or a challenge. They're not willing to share that. Men are driven by their ego. Let's not kid ourselves. So, once we have that conversation and we have that sort of a spitballing, then you might be a little bit more open to a dialogue about it.
I mean, can I be honest? When we started this podcast, and I don't know that our listeners know this, but I know Steve does, is we at first we're thinking, how can people get to know, like, and trust, like Steve always talks of those three parts of the path to winning the sale. How can we take people further down the road so that they know, like, and trust resource and development for their business needs? And to some degree, I think that can still be true. But I think over this course of this year, and by the way, it was November 21st of 2022 was our first episode.
Okay.
uh, I told you I'd get you there. It has evolved into something that Steve and I have a passion for, and that is helping businesses, and especially the ones that can least afford it. And this a podcast has, instead of becoming a promotional tool for resource and development, has become a labor of love that we want to see get into the hands of other business owners that can use it, and especially the ones that can't afford the help right now. So, but let me just finish by saying, so when Steve says reach out, when we talk about free coaching, when we talk about a free book, when we talk about free podcasts and free blogs and these things, it's not really with the intent of trying to sell you something as much as it is trying to get the help you need into your hands. And so we just need your feedback. We need your suggestions. We need your love, but we need but we're here to help small and medium-sized businesses of every shape and form, and to just try and help them with a little bit of the wisdom, a little bit of the gray hair that we've acquired over these last 25, 30 years each. I'm sorry, Steve.
Most frustrating thing for me was coming to the end of a 2.5-day survey or analysis of business, knowing full and well that they were essentially on their last dollars, and they had really managed things not as effectively as they know they could have after we've gone through their sales, their operations, and all their finance, their all of their financial inputs, and we find what the issues are. The most frustrating thing for me is knowing full and well that they can't afford it. I mean, they can barely afford to make rent. They're behind on rent. The guy hasn't paid himself. He reaches it into his pocket and pulls out his wallet, and in his wallet is the last 4 paychecks that he can't cash. Nothing more frustrating than that, when he's got himself in that spot, but this guy needs help. So because we have basically severed most of our relationship with all the international consulting companies, and in deference to them, I think for by and large, they do a great job. But we're in a position right now, we don't have to support a giant amount of overhead. We have a very low burden rate, and it's our time. And we're not unwilling to share that time with business owners who really do need a little bit of input, need a little bit of coaching. And it doesn't mean to say that we're going to do this gratis across the board, but certainly it'll open the dialogue for a relationship, and then we can see where we can go from there. But one thing I never want anybody to worry about is, how am I going to pay for this? You start losing sleep over how you're going to pay for it, and then there's something wrong. That's just my opinion.
When I first started my consulting, I've always had this mantra: is first do no harm. And if me giving them an invoice going to harm their company, then I'm not going to give them an invoice. And obviously, so you make your bones, you make your paycheck over the years with the companies that can afford it. But I've always given, probably 30, maybe even 40% of my consulting away, because I'm always more challenged, frankly, by the companies that are struggling than the companies who are doing almost everything right, and I can just tweak it. So anyway, for me, it's always been the challenge, and I find the people who can't afford us to be the most challenging and the most fun folks to work with.
In conclusion, I will tell you that I do all the quarterly reviews with business owners to find out where they are versus where they would be. As I always introduce Skip as our resident guru of coaching, our lead business coach. When I do those reviews, I ask a very candid questions about, could Skip do something a little bit differently? Would you expect a little bit different sort of input? Has he been articulate enough about what it was that your concern was? And I've never had a bad review. So for those of you listening, it is important you know that I endorse Skip and his coaching ability 100%. And I really look forward to other people taking advantage of his depth of knowledge and his ability to talk through those kinds of issues that are plaguing most small business owners.
Well, if I could return the compliment, I really appreciate you taking the leadership on this podcast, because it has become something that we look forward to recording every week, every other week, and it's become a labor of love, hasn't it, Steve?
Years and years of training in production capability has put us in this spot.
and hence sometimes the home fun quality of these podcasts. I hope what you learn from them offsets the production value of them.
Agreed. So with that, I think we have well overdone our 20 minutes. So I hope you're stuck around, and if you did, we appreciate your listening. And next time you see us, it will be S1E27.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year. And unless you have something else, Skip.
That's a wrap, man. That is a wrap.
That's a wrap.